Are you planning a trip to Italy and want to visit Tuscany? Well, today you're in luck because today we're going to be telling you the common mistakes that we see tourists do when visiting Tuscany and how to avoid them.
Stay tuned.
Hi everyone, I'm Rick.
And I'm Andrea, and today we'll tell you the worst mistake that people make when visiting Tuscany, and especially how to avoid them. But first, if you like travel-related videos like this one, now is a great time to hit the subscribe button down below so you never miss any future videos.
That's great advice. And by the way, if you like blue striped shirts, kudos to that one as well. We should plan these better.
Yeah.
All right, so without any further ado, let's begin with Tuscany is not a country or even a city. Everyone has seen photos on social media of Tuscany, but not many people actually know what Tuscany is and where it is. Tuscany is an Italian region located in the central part of Italy. It's actually a fairly big region with 22,000 square kilometers, or 8,100 square miles, approximately the same size as Vermont. So you could say it's kind of like a state.
Yeah.
Tuscany is rich in history, architecture, and natural beauty. The capital of Tuscany is Florence, which is also the most famous and biggest city in the region. Other famous cities in Tuscany are Pisa, Siena, Lucca, and Arezzo. Also in Tuscany, there's some of the most charming and beautiful medieval towns like San Gimignano, Monteriggione, Volterra, Montalcino, and so on.
Moving on to our next don't of Tuscany is you can't see everything in one trip. Make a plan. As we mentioned before, Tuscany is quite big and has a lot to offer. For this reason, you will probably not be able to see everything in one trip. Even though we live in Italy, we haven't seen everything in Tuscany yet. So your best option would be to make a list of must 2 or 3 places to see and then prepare an itinerary based on that. Remember that no trip to Tuscany will be complete without spending at least 1, better 2 nights in Florence. So unless you have seen it before, don't forget to include Florence in your itinerary. In our opinion, a great itinerary in Tuscany would be at least 5 days, with 2 days in Florence, 1 day in Pisa and Lucca, which are very close to each other, you can do in 1 day, 1 in Siena, and 1 in Montalcino, and 1 in San Gimignano. Now, if you'll be driving, we recommend staying in Siena for the 5 days, and you can easily visit these days in
all of the cities from there. You can use Siena as your base, right?
Exactly.
And if you've seen any of our videos before, you know that we don't like to go from hotel to hotel to hotel. It takes too much time, and it's really, not that much fun.
Nope. Now that you have a general idea about Tuscany, let's check out our next don't do in Tuscany. Don't forget to buy tickets in advance.
Yeah, so like any other major tourist destination in the world, even in Tuscany and especially in Florence and Siena, well, you should always buy your attraction or museum tickets in advance. So the first reason is because, well, you don't want to spend hours in line buying your tickets on the site, because you probably will, especially if it's a famous attraction. Number 2, you don't want to risk going all the way to Tuscany only to find out that the attraction or museum that you really want to see is sold out.
And they do get sold out.
Yes, all the time. And reason number 3, most attractions, well, they offer skip-the-line tickets. And no, you can't buy skip-the-line tickets at the attractions.
And especially don't buy them from people on the street. They're like scammers.
No.
Buy the skip-the-line tickets are always our favorite way of seeing museum and attraction. Because the last thing you want to do in your holiday is to spend most of your time waiting in line.
Yeah. Or changing hotels.
Or changing hotels. By the way, we have left a link in the description below for the best skip-the-line tickets in Tuscany.
Well, at least the most famous attractions and things to see and do. Okay, so our next topic in this video is don't stick to hotels only. So hotels are a great option in many cities, but in Tuscany, you should also try some bed and breakfasts, and most importantly, some agriturismo. What is agriturismo?
Yes, good you ask. These are farms that have been converted in bed and breakfast and often offer tasting of their local products, such as wine, olive oil, and food. Most of these agriturismo nowadays are quite spectacular, with beautiful swimming pool and stunning landscape.
Absolutely, and some decent restaurants as well.
Absolutely. So when you're in the Tuscany countryside, consider staying in one of agriturismo and you won't be disappointed.
All right, so moving on to our next don't do this in Tuscany, and that's avoid driving if you can. Trains and buses are your best friends. Now, it's true that some areas of Tuscany are easier to reach by car, but driving in Tuscany can be a bit tricky. So first, the streets in the countryside, well, they can be quite narrow and windy. So if you're not used to driving on these kind of roads,
Can be a challenge.
yeah, you might find it a bit of a challenge. Of course, reason number two, in most cities and towns in Tuscany, well, there's a lot of driving and parking restrictions, actually just like all of Italy.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with those, you might end up getting a hefty fine for something that,
Parking.
Exactly. Lastly, in some rural areas in Tuscany, you're not going to have the best cell phone coverage, so your cell phone GPS or navigator, well, it might not end up working and you could end up lost. So for that reason, we think your best option is to take trains and buses wherever you'd like to go. Now, if you want to go to some of the more remote areas, maybe for a little wine tasting, we'd say take an organized tour so you won't have the problem of drinking and driving. And they're cracking down in this country.
Yes.
So we're going to leave a link in the description below for some really good wine tasting tours in Tuscany.
Our next don't of Tuscany is don't visit only in the summer.
No.
Consider off-season. We get it, most people have their vacation time in the summer. And if that's the only time off you can have to visit Tuscany, well, you have no choice. You have to come in the summer.
Yeah, dress light, right?
Yes. But if you can go in the fall or in the spring, you will have much better visit than you would in the summer. In fact, in the fall, you will be able to see the vines turning red, the grapes and olive harvest, and the cities have less crowd.
Oh yeah, that's much better.
Also, if you go off-season, you will have a much milder temperature to deal with.
Exactly.
Yeah. In the spring, you might get some occasional rain, but it won't last very long, unless it was last spring was a little...
And by the way, if you want to know what to pack for Italy, check out this video up here. All right, so moving on to our next don't do this in Tuscany, and that's don't stick to the famous spots. Check out the lesser-known areas. Tuscany has some of the most famous and beautiful cities in the world, like Florence, Siena, and Lucca. But it also has so much more to see. In fact, Tuscany has some of the most beautiful landscapes in Italy and some of the best preserved medieval villages. So when you plan your trip to Tuscany, you should also include some of these stunning places.
Absolutely. For example, last year we did a tour of Montalcino and the Chianti area, and we loved it. By the way, here's the video for you of our wine tasting tour and adventure in Tuscany.
Exactly. And here's a bottle of Brunello di Montalcino, and here is one of Chianti. And for our final don't do this in Tuscany, it's don't forget to try the local food and wine. Tuscany has an incredible variety of amazing products and food, and a visit to the region would not be complete without a taste of what this great area has to offer. For example, some of the most renowned olive oil in Italy comes from Tuscany. So olive oil tasting, well, it should be included in your trip.
Absolutely. Also in Tuscany, you should try the famous bistecca alla fiorentina, a delicious and tender T-bone steak served on medium rare in the meant for sharing and among a few people.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's this thick and this big.
Yeah.
And of course, a trip to Tuscany would not be complete without some wine tasting.
Exactly.
In fact, two of the most famous wines in the world come from Tuscany, Chianti and Brunello di Montalcino. Bottom line, make sure to find a good local restaurant during your trip and try some of the many delicacies that Tuscany has to offer.
Yeah, don't bother with the hamburgers, hot dogs,
The frozen pizza.
Frozen pizza, come on. Yeah, no. Well, folks, that's what we've got for you today. We hope you enjoyed our video. And as usual, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment below because we love to respond. And by the way, if you ever see us out and about, don't hesitate to say hi.
In the meantime, we'll see you on our next video.
Ciao.
Ciao.